Immortal Hawk, Blue Rebel Paints.
Hi, I'm Blue Rebel, and in this video, we're going to paint the Immortal Hawk. Inside the box, it came with these little cards. I think they're for the move set, but they look pretty cool. Also came with these little pogs. Again, I think it's for the game. I'll put them with my pog collection. And a character sheet with all the moves and HP. With a pretty cool picture. So, let's start the video and see how the paint job turned out.
Already primed and put together the miniature. The miniature did have a lot of seam lines I had to fill, but I took care of it. And here's a little side-by-side comparison to some Warhammer. The Immortal Hawk's pretty big in comparison. For most of the skin tone, I used a dark and a light Vallejo green. I added a little blue and black in there to start the base coat. Just mix it until you find a color tone that you prefer. I made sure it was a little darker. And our least favorite thing again is base coating. Just start slathering it on the skin just to get some color going. And then take some of the darker green by itself and start just doing a second base coat, kind of leaving just a little bit less than the time before. Midway through this process, I decided I would do a scratch highlight to try to give it that effect of a muscle striation. Once you get that second base coat done, then you can start mixing in some of the dark and lighter green, and we can begin the highlights. Hitting all the knuckles and all the high spots with that lighter green. And there we are, trying to do that striation highlight. It might have been a bad idea, because it took twice as long to paint the entire miniature doing this. But it was the first time I tried, so I figured I'd see how it turned out. Try to paint those striations in the same lines as the muscle tissue would be underneath the skin. Making sure to hit all the highlights on the face. And he was very veiny, and I wanted to make sure those veins stuck out. So every coat I made sure I put the next highlight onto the veins. And if you want to see some bloopers of me trying to record, stick around to the end. Just make sure to leave some of those areas you painted last time. And just keep going with that scratch technique of highlights. It was very time consuming, but I think with just it being regular skin, adding these lines gave it a little bit of texture, which overall I think actually helped the miniature. Model's actually pretty detailed. They really made the Hulk shredded. My man's got an 8-pack and he's so veiny. It's pretty cool to see how detailed they can get with these miniatures nowadays. At this point, I do a little bit of dry brushing just to kind of smooth the whole textures and just kind of pick up some spots that I might not have hit. That's a pretty good start so far. Now, to get a even brighter highlight, we go ahead and add some yellow into that lighter green for our next set of highlights on the skin. Just take a little bit of yellow and just keep adding into that green. And eventually I come up with this lime green color I was happy with. so I started my highlights. And yet again, we go in with that same striation type of shading and hit a little bit less than last time on the shading. And just keep going in and doing that same striations over and over and over again. This Hawk model ends up being pretty big in comparison to any Warhammer I've done before. I think it's a solid 3 inches tall, which is pretty big in the scheme of miniatures. And I know that's because he's the Immortal Hawk. The rest of these Marvel miniatures seem to be more scaled than Warhammer size. They're a lot smaller. Make sure to paint the tongue and his roof of his mouth in a red color. And I think this floral green I'm going to use for his eye color. But first we start painting the teeth white. And one of those processes I hate is painting the eyes. Hold your breath and paint the white. And if you make any mistakes, do a little bit of touch up at this point. And here's that fluorescent green on the palette. It's pretty bright, very neon colored. And just do just a tiny little dab right in the center of the pupil.
Oh, Hawk eye.
And I mixed a little bit of that dark green and black together and painted the hair. And then we start doing a wash on the rock that's on his foot. I used a brown contrast or a brown shade color for that. And just slather it all over. Kind of looks like a little piece of poop. I forgot to record this section, so I took a little footage from the live stream, and this was the section where I just painted a bunch of white sketchy lines all over the pants and stuff. And then we're going to do a contrast purple over that. I think I did a total of 3 coats of that purple contrast on the pants. Gives it a pretty nice simple way to get texture into something you don't want to spend a bunch of time on. I went and added a little bit more yellow into some more green for the next shade. And this time we're doing a little bit more from above to try to give that highlight more like it's coming from the sky. I also do a little bit of stipple technique, just dabbing the model. Just more ways to give textures. Starting above and pulling the color downward helps emphasize the model being highlighted from up above. It's starting to look really good now, I think. Now I tried to just do a little bit of dry brush with no paint just to try to smooth everything over a little bit. It slightly helps give it more a smooth finish. And we can't forget the eyebrows. The Hulk actually has black eyebrows, so I added those in there. Another section I forgot to record was the dry brushing of the base. So here's some footage from the live stream. And this is what it turns out like after dry brushing. And we go back to doing some washes with another brown color and all the dirt spots underneath the asphalt. adding some gnaw oil on the entire base to help get all that dark shading in between all the cracks. Yet another spot I forgot to record was using some of this grit grime color on some of the rocks and stuff on the top of the base. We also added in some silver on the parking meter. Hit that parking meter with some gnaw oil also, just to darken the recesses. I went ahead and added some pigment powder on some of the dirt areas, just to knock down some of that shine. I put it on there and then blew it off, and it helped give it a dull look, or something more like dirt. Go ahead and glue the Hulk in, using some super glue. Here's a little sneak peek of a bigger project with the Hulk and Gazgul. I'm going to build a big diorama for these two to fight each other. Paint the base rim in a flat black. And here's an old Hulk toy. What are you looking at? You talking smack about me? I got a bowl cut. Give the model a little signature on the bottom. And here's how the paint job turned out. And we got some bloopers at the end of this, so if you want to see some funny moments of me trying to record myself like an idiot, stick around, hit the like button, subscribe, comment. Thanks for watching.
What do I do with my hands? Hi, puppy dog, what you doing? Face reveal. Alright. Sweet. Alright. Take two. English hard, brain hurt.